Hi guys. Yes, I wanted to make a quickie little video illustrating what the heck I was rambling on about in email about alpha, Carlos alpha versus normal tuning. So what I have here is two piano sounds. You can see them right here. It says 12 tet, 12 tone equal temperament, normal tuning, nothing tricky. And then another one over here, it says alpha. So you can tell, you can always look up here and see which of these two piano sounds I'm using. I chose two slightly different sounding sounds just so maybe it might give you a little bit of an auditory clue, but in any case. So just to illustrate what's going on, so with alpha you got a 78 cent scale step, so it's about a little over 3/4 the size of the usual one. Not an octave here, as you can see. As opposed to obviously an octave here. But in any case, so what's interesting about this? Well, a lot of times people will ask the question of what small whole number ratios, just, intonation ratios, so to speak, approximate a particular system will approximate. And how well they approximate them. In the case of normal, this key, as you can see, is pretty close to the same on both tunings. Actually, they're not A's, interestingly, in either case, but it's a G or so thereabouts. But in any case, here, there is a perfectly normal fifth in alpha. In alpha, though, it's farther up the keyboard, though. But, so the major third and the minor thirds are much closer to the exact 5:4 and 6:5 ratio. Here, the major third in the normal keyboard. On alpha, it's so why is that good? Well, here is the difference it makes. So this is normal tuning. As opposed to as you can see, it's a bit off. It's about 400 cents as opposed to the ideal 5:4 ratio being 386 cents. It just sounds too sharp as opposed to. So it's more accurate representation of thirds, minor thirds as well. So anyway, that's one thing that's kind of interesting about it, but there's more to it. There are other intervals in here, obviously. This two-step interval is very curious because it's, the primitive scale step is about 3/4. So minor third, right? This is the minor third here. That's 4 steps. Which means that there's half of a minor third, which is normally 3 steps. So there's no interval in normal tuning that's half the size of a minor third, and that's this one. So it's just almost exactly halfway between a usual whole step and a half step, which is very curious sounding. If you mess around with just the black keys, you can hear just how curious that is. Whole major triad, but yeah, okay. I love that. Just mind-bending kinds of melodies that you can do with these very unusual intervals. Yeah, so that halfway between a half step and a whole step is very intriguing. But the 3-step interval is extremely close to an 8-to-7 frequency ratio, which I find to be just like the exact splitting the difference between, it's the largest possible second you can possibly do. Cat wants to get up on my lap. Or it's the smallest possible third. If you yeah, so it's kind of it's a very intriguing sounding interval. So you got this, anyway, point being, you can do some just crazy melody stuff with it. But you also have a very close approximation to a 10-to-7 tritone. Here's the 5th. Here's a very close approximation to a 10-to-7 tritone, which is much more consonant than we're used to thinking about tritone being, this, this horribly dreadful sounding interval. But the 10-to-7 tritone in alpha is, and in other tunings, is much more settled, I guess you could say. A 7-to-5 tritone, which is the inversion of that 10-to-7 tritone, is even more so. It's a very placid tritone, if such a thing exists. The sixths are very interesting. You have normal, major, and minor thirds, as I mentioned. But the sixths are very curious. This 10-step interval, which is just barely above the 5th, that one turns out to be very close to an 11-to-7 ratio. This one, this 11-step interval, I'm trying to remember what that is. Oh, yes, that's right. That's it's a 18. It's close to an 18-to-11, which is the inversion of neutral. It's called a blues third. It's halfway between major and minor third, so it's a neutral sixth. It's halfway between a minor sixth and a major sixth, and this is very close to a 12-to-7, which is the inversion of a 7-to-6 subminor third, with slightly flat of the usual minor third. It's the inversion of that, meaning it's a somewhat sharp major sixth. And it has somewhat, I can relate to it to a fair degree. And I think what's most interesting about it, other than having, familiar harmony, is that you can play some melodies that just are like blah, blah, blah. I'm just diddling around, obviously. Anyway, so that's what I was rambling about earlier. This is just a quick, cheesy little video I wanted to whip out real quick. Anyway, that's it for now.